Form 4 Chapter 15, Reproduction, is obviously one of the hardest chapter that most of you will think. And for essay, I think this year, very important. So, among the topics that we can focus is menstrual cycle, the 4 female hormones, don't forget, FOLT, formation of twins, insects growth, the complete incomplete metamorphosis, along with the growth curves as well, and also infertility, female and also male, you do a bit of those. So these are the few important ones that I will go through. So it's unlikely that I can cover the whole chapter yet. So I'll try to cover the ones that I feel is more important this year. So number one, they ask about this hormone called HCG. So other than the FSH, estrogen, luteinizing hormone, and progesterone, don't forget about this hormone as well. So they ask, state the function of this HCG hormone secreted by M. Now, M is the placenta. Now, when implantation first occurred during the first few days of pregnancy, the placenta is only partially, very just beginning to form only. So during this stage, it cannot produce progesterone and estrogen to maintain the thickness of the endometrium. Therefore, it will secrete a hormone called HCG to stimulate corpus luteum to not degenerate. Because you remember, if there's no pregnancy, corpus luteum degenerate. If there's pregnancy, corpus luteum continue to secrete progesterone. That's because of this HCG lets it know that a girl is pregnant. So that's what we have to explain. So HCG, I written here, it is to ensure corpus luteum continue to function. So explain, so that it will secrete progesterone, and also don't forget your estrogens. Okay, so these two hormones you mentioned, the function is to stimulate the thickening of the wall, endometrium. Now, if they want you to explain even more, you can even say why the endometrium has to be thickened is because it's for implantation of embryo. Okay, there's one more HCG question. Now, I'll skip to quite behind here. Yeah, this one, the pregnancy test one. So, by the way, pregnancy test kit is to test presence of HCG in the woman's urine. So, some of you already might know how to test whether a girl is pregnant. This pregnancy test kit, the girl have to urine pee on it, and then you've got 2 lines like test COVID, and that positive means you got is pregnant. No? So you say justify the pregnancy test result for Mrs. Q. So you're going to justify what does this test mean. Got 2 lines means she is pregnant. No? So why? Is because the HCG hormone is present. Then you can say, how do you detect the HCG hormone? Detect the urine, because you can say which is present in the urine. Then you can explain a bit why when a girl pregnant there is HCG. So relate to the first question that we did earlier today. You can scroll back if you forget. Whereby, because the placenta secretes HCG to stimulate corpus luteum remain and continue to secrete the 2 hormones, progesterone and estrogen, but mainly you mentioned progesterone. That they probably will give you correct already lah. So here is the 5 marks lah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then another HCG question. Okay, this HCG question a bit different. Now, this one they say that based on the above statement, how the injections of hormone enable process of pregnancy. Now, if girls who have problem getting pregnant, HCG, artificial HCG hormone can help them. So they say here, a woman cannot get pregnant due to failure of ovulation. The doctor gave the woman a hormone injection. The woman became pregnant after the hormone treatment. So HCG has a similar role to LH. It can stimulate ovulation. Okay, it's after ovulation already, it also, just like LH, it can stimulate. So remember, it's just like similar to LH, luteinizing hormone. It's then stimulate graphene to become the corpus luteum and stimulate corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. Similar like what we mentioned earlier in this video, the HCG. So HCG will then ask this corpus luteum to continue, do not break down, okay, secrete the estrogen to stimulate thickening of the endometrium for implantation of embryo. So this is another way you can ask HCG. Moving on, state the name and functions of M throughout pregnancy. So M is the placenta. So what else does it do that mainly helps the fetus development? Act as a site of nutrients and waste exchange. So it will help to exchange nutrient and waste between the mother and the fetus, means it will help transport nutrients from the mother into fetus, remove the waste. So it goes two ways, got the umbilical cord, that one. And it also, remember, act as an endocrine gland to secrete progesterone and estrogen that we just mentioned earlier just now. So after around 12 weeks, around 3 months of pregnancy, right, corpus luteum will eventually degenerate. And then by here onwards, placenta will be fully formed already, so it can take over the corpus luteum to secrete progesterone and estrogen. So then continue doing what we did just now, to stimulate thickening of endometrium. So other than that, we also can say it helps to separate the mother and fetal circulatory system to ensure the blood does not mix. Because if the blood mix, the blood group could be incompatible. Yeah, so you can say is to prevent mixing. Moving on, explain the importance of M to the body defense of the fetus. Now, other than supplying nutrients to the baby, placenta also transport antibodies from mother's blood into the fetus, because baby have not developed their immune system yet during this stage of course. So it allows diffusion of antibodies from mother into the fetus. Now, if you remember your Form 4 chapter 11, this is what we call as a natural passive immunity, because you receive antibodies naturally, right? So which provide natural. Then of course we got to elaborate a bit. Now, what does this give the fetus other than give immunity? So by giving babies antibody, of course, it helps to fight any germs, pathogens that enter the fetus and to protect it from getting diseases. So it protects baby from being attacked by pathogen and prevent baby to be infected by diseases. So that's what you have to say. So remember to mention natural passive immunity. So by giving antibodies, it helps to kill pathogens, prevent baby from getting diseases. Next question, they ask about an infertility question. So they say here, a woman has a problem with blocked fallopian tubes. So fallopian tube blocks, okay, we'll get that in a moment. The woman and her husband want to have a child. They consult a specialist doctor for advice, and the doctor suggests a technique shown. Now, if fallopian tube is blocked, means the sperm cannot travel to find the ovum and fertilize it. So therefore, the most common method we will mention here is always IVF, which you can see here. The fertilization is carried out in a lab inside a petri dish. So this is basically in vitro fertilization. And the question didn't ask the method here, but they asked the method. They say suggestion of the doctor can solve the couple's infertility problem justified. So they didn't ask you to mention the IVF, but they just say, how does this solve the couple's problem? So basically you can say it allow fertilization to take place outside of the fallopian tube. So then you got to mention, hence allowing the mother to be pregnant. So I justify, can this work? Yes, it can work, because the mother will get pregnant. Because now, since the sperm cannot travel here, I bring it out of the body to carry out the process. So it's called in vitro fertilization, which the next question, they ask us to explain about this process. So the maximum they can ask is around 8 marks. So I give you a full explanation over here. So based on 11, we do describe the technique. So of course, now we name the technique. So the technique is called in vitro fertilization. Now better to write the full name out. So it's in vitro fertilization, also known as IVF. So the doctor will use a special tool called a laparoscopy. Usually you don't need to write it, to extract the ovum out from the ovary. So first we extract the ovum, and we place it inside a petri dish, which is not just an empty petri dish. This petri dish got nutrients inside. You can say containing nutrient, but I prefer to use this better term called a cultured medium. Means a medium that has nutrients in it for sperm ovum. So sperm from father is then obtained. Then I put the sperm and the ovum inside here for them to fertilize. So sperm from father is obtained to fertilize the ovum. So you mentioned to fertilize, you get 1 mark. To form a zygote, also 1 mark. So don't forget, after fertilization, I get a zygote. Now, why this solution has nutrients? Now, other than for the sperm and ovum to, of course, survive, this nutrient also allow the zygote to develop. So the zygote then divides by mitosis, slowly becomes an embryo. So this will take around like few days. So once it becomes like an embryo, I will then need to implant it back into the mother's uterus, and then the mother will get pregnant as normal. You can't grow a baby outside the mother's body lah, huh? So after a few days, after I get the embryo already, okay, 1 mark for mentioning that also, then you implant it into the uterus of mother. Mother then becomes pregnant. So you can see that a lot of these tiny, small details in your right are all actually marks. So don't forget to mention all this. So that's how you explain IVF. So this is the most common method of overcoming female infertility. Now the next question is asking about male infertility. Not very often they ask about male, but I'm just going to do one. So the first problem, they say that this man got erectile dysfunction, means the bird cannot stand, low number of sperm, and low quality of sperm. So they just ask you to suggest how you can help the individual. Now, you can suggest one method for each lah. So for erectile dysfunction, you mainly need to have a healthy lifestyle, means don't drink, don't smoke, eat healthily. So this one I write here. Basically, you can say practice a healthy lifestyle such as don't smoke and drink alcohol. You also can say practice a healthy diet, because proper nutrition can help your body to produce correct hormones, sufficient hormones for the thing to stand up, of course. Yeah, you can mention that. And then if there's low number of sperm, how can we overcome? Is a method called artificial insemination. Sperm is collected over a number of period of time. Once you get a healthy concentration, they'll then inject into the fallopian tube. For this question, only 4 marks. Actually, you don't need to explain a lot. You just say carry out artificial insemination. So for low quality of sperm, same lah. You can do this as well. But for low number of sperm, you also can carry out IVF. So instead of collecting a number of sperm over a period of time, you can just really take the sperm from the father and then fertilize the ovum, like just now we mentioned. No? So you also can say carry out IVF. So we get exactly 4 marks already for this question. Okay. Next, we do a KL paper. Okay, now this topic different already. It's metamorphosis. So there are two kinds of metamorphosis, two kinds of insect growth. One is called complete metamorphosis. Metamorphosis means you have a large change in body structure. So complete metamorphosis starts with an egg. Egg, we become a larva, like a worm. Then worm becomes a pupa. The pupa then becomes an adult. So example of insects that are like this are like butterflies, bees. Baby, they are worm. Grow up already, they become something totally different that can fly. So these are two most common insects. Flies also, lalat. Now this is called incomplete metamorphosis. Like after egg, you become a nymph. Nymph is just basically a mini adult. So nymph will just grow bigger to become adult. So the difference is just size. It looks similar. So this one got 1, 2, 3 growth stages. This one got 1, 2, 3, 4 growth stages. So name stage X, already named for you, larva. One example of animal that undergoes the same growth, I did mention a few already, right? Butterfly, flies, bees, beetles, so many. Insect in diagram 6.2 undergoes ecdysis few times until it becomes an adult. Draw a growth curve of the insect in 6.2. So 6.2, you got to draw the intermittent growth curve. That's what the growth curve of this insect is. Now remember, for intermittent growth curve, right, it's not applicable to them because they don't undergo ecdysis, means they don't shed, they don't undergo molting, they don't change their outer shell. So for this one, you just have to draw like this one, a staircase shaped curve. How many marks for this one? Did he mention? Did he mention how many marks? Yeah, so I think better we label. So there are two main stages. This one whereby there's zero growth, it's called instar. And this one is called ecdysis, whereby they change their shell to grow. And here you can write adult. So they'll keep on repeating instar and ecdysis until they reach maturity, reach adult. Then, of course, they ask us to compare complete and incomplete metamorphosis. So 6.1 is called complete. This one, obviously, it's incomplete metamorphosis. This one involve ecdysis. Then this one, obviously, do not involve ecdysis. So easy. And other than that, the growth stages are different also. So one have 4, which is egg, larva, pupa, adult. The other one is 3, egg, nymph, adult. Other than that, what hatches from the egg is different. This one is nymph, this one is larva. And then between larva and nymph looks exactly like the adult. The difference is just size. Larva looks completely different, does not look like the adult. So these are additional comparisons you can write. If let's say they ask more marks. Okay. And the final question for this one is they say diagram 6.3 shows a type of insecticide pesticide 杀虫药 that was used by Mr. K to place in a stagnant water around the flower pots in his house. So you can see this poster, you say that it kills larvae of mosquitoes. So based on 6.3, explain the effect of insecticide on life cycle of the insect. So it kills the larva, right? So that's the first thing you can say. It kills the larva of mosquito, or you can just say insect because the question didn't say mosquito. So what happens to it? It cannot form adult, so the population will decrease. So hence, it is unable to form adult and population of the insect decreases. That's how you explain this. Very straightforward, 2 marks, easy. Okay, now there's a few questions here that I'm not going to do all, so I'll just pick whatever I think is slightly more important. So the rest, they are really answers in these notes. So the notes in the description below are, as always, go and find it yourself. Okay, let me explain a bit the menstrual cycle. Now, these 4 hormones. Now, if you want a full description, full explanation about this menstrual cycle, yeah, put the link somewhere here. You can watch one of my very old videos. So now, explain how the changes in hormone levels secreted during menstrual cycle affects the follicle development in ovaries and thickness of endometrium. So the 4 hormones F, O, L, P. These 4 hormones, right? How are they mainly involved in the menstrual cycle? Is right, they help the ovum to develop, and at the same time also they stimulate the thickening of the endometrium. So that's what they are mentioning here. They want you to explain these 2. Follicles relates to the development of ovum, of course. So number 1, you need to know these 4 hormones they are secreted in this order. Feed our 老婆. Remember? So where do they come from? Okay, first thing we need to know is up, down, up, down. Follicle stimulating hormone comes from our pituitary gland. So this FSH, by the way, estrogen. This is LH, luteinizing hormone, and progesterone. Now, for hormones that have short form, you can write short form. So up, down means FSH comes from your pituitary gland. Estrogen comes from your ovary, specifically the follicle cells. This one you go back up again, pituitary gland, and this one you go back down, ovary. But this time your follicle becomes the corpus luteum, like we mentioned earlier in this video. So for these 7 marks, or you can ask up to 10 marks, you just need to know the hormone, the function of each hormone, and how the hormone affect the next hormone. Okay, what does that mean? FOL, they have positive feedback mechanism on the next hormone. Means they stimulate the next hormone to be secreted, but first, going to explain how. We should get to that later. Progesterone is the only hormone that have a negative feedback mechanism. Means when progesterone is being secreted, it will cause LH and FSH to go the other way. Means if progesterone increase, F and L decrease. If progesterone decrease, FSH and LH go up. Understand? So In this graph, how to determine which hormone is which, right? If let's say there's a question asking you to label the hormones, right? Okay, you can break it down into the 4 stages of menstrual cycle. So around the first 5 days, there's menstruation, there's repair phase, which occur for roughly a week. Then you have ovulation, which happens for a day, and then we call this luteal phase, also known as pre-menstruation syndrome, where you wait for the sperm to come fertilize the secondary oocyte. So FOLP. So you can see the highest line in the first few days here is your FSH. So that's the first hormone. And you can see here to here, O will then increase up. Obviously, that's the highest. Then LH, this hormone, you can never miss it one. It only will come up from around 1 day, which is day 14, because LH is to stimulate ovulation. So this LH, right, 1 day only you need, which is day 14. Okay. And then FSH, right, sometimes you're a bit confused how to find FSH. Okay, FSH, because sometimes the hormone all very close together, you cannot see. So FSH, other than during the first day, will come up, right? During day 14, also will come up a bit one. So FSH will always be below LH. And see carefully, estrogen will come up during here, LH will not one. Because a lot of my students, right, will confuse this as LH. LH, like I say, only come up during day 14, not here. And then P will only come up after ovulation. So you can see before ovulation is hormone dada, after ovulation only come up. So that's progesterone. Now progesterone is secreted by corpus luteum, like we mentioned earlier. But corpus luteum also got secrete a bit of estrogen. So below progesterone, you will find estrogen. So that's another way to find estrogen, because progesterone and estrogen, they basically do the same thing. That's why corpus luteum will secrete both of them, but more progesterone. Okay, so here I already write the answer. Now, so you can start by saying, during the previous cycle, when progesterone decrease, menstruation occur, right? So actually you can start by saying during day 1 to 5, menstruation occurs. Why menstruation occurs is because progesterone level decreases due to no pregnancy occur. So when the wall breaks down, so remember, progesterone, negative feedback on F ma. So if progesterone low, FSH will increase. So we start the whole cycle again. So low level of progesterone stimulates pituitary to secrete FSH. Then what did I say just now? For every hormone, mention the function. How does it relate to the next hormone? So FSH stimulates development of follicles. So follicles are the group of cells that surrounds the oocyte. So it stimulates primary follicle to become secondary follicle. So primary oocyte complete meiosis to become secondary oocyte. Then other than that, FSH also stimulates the follicle to secrete the next hormone, estrogen. Like we mentioned, estrogen is secreted by the follicle. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, they stimulate it. Hormones you can write short form, remember. So what does estrogen do next? It will then repair and thicken the endometrium. So which is what they are doing here. Because here menstruation occur ma, now I want to repair back the wall. So that's what estrogen does. And estrogen will have a positive feedback mechanism on pituitary gland to secrete the next hormone, LH, FOL. However, there's a bit of FSH as well. Because LH stimulates ovulation. But before ovulation can occur, you still need a bit of FSH to form the Graafian follicle. Secondary follicle becomes Graafian. So you need a bit of FSH. That's why here you see come up a little bit. But mainly it's LH. So I write here LH first. So next, state the function first. LH stimulates ovulation. Here I explain a bit what's ovulation, whereby the Graafian follicle. Then next, how does it stimulate the next hormone? LH stimulate Graafian to become corpus luteum. So remember, corpus luteum forms from Graafian, and because of LH only got corpus, then LH will ask this corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. And then finally, the last around 2 weeks like that, corpus luteum will secrete progesterone, as you mentioned, which stimulate thickening of endometrium, because now ovulation occur already, secondary oocyte release. Anytime sperm will come. So progesterone to make sure the girl's body is ready for pregnancy. To end this, if you look at this diagram, after around day 22, if there's no fertilization, corpus luteum will degenerate. And then progesterone decrease ma. So that's what I'm going to mention here. If there's no fertilization, corpus luteum say bye-bye. Corpus luteum don't wait already. So there's no progesterone, endometrium sheds, menstruation occurs, and then we start again from here. Hopefully, it makes it easier now if they ask you to explain the whole thing. So just remember FOLP. Okay, our next question is SABK paper. Now, since I already go through the hormones just now, so you try to identify like these hormones or what they are pointing. Okay, I go through one of it. So L, this hormone, is quite obvious is estrogen because it increase after like 5 days and that. And you can see it also come up behind. Remember we say that estrogen will come up with progesterone together. Yeah, so obviously it's progesterone. So the rest, try and go through yourself. Okay, but I want to go through one question here, C. So this asks, Mrs. M takes a birth control pill that prevents pregnancy, also known as contraceptive pill. Sometimes they will use this word. The content of the pill inhibits secretion of FSH. Now, this pill can inhibit two hormones, FSH or LH. So sometimes the question will still really say either one. So if they say FSH, then you got to explain, without FSH, how does this prevent a girl from getting pregnant? So by the way, explain the effect. Yeah, so I think you can say this, whereby how does it inhibit the secretion of FSH, right? Is because birth control pills actually has synthetic progesterone, man-made progesterone, which you already mentioned. Progesterone inhibit F and L, the two pituitary gland hormone. So you can say it contains synthetic progesterone. Okay, for this one, probably there's no marks for this question because if you want you to still say without FSH, what will happen, ma? Okay, so we say without FSH, follicle cannot develop. So if follicle cannot develop, the oocyte inside also cannot develop. Primary oocyte does not develop into secondary oocyte. And follicle don't develop, how are you going to release the secondary oocyte? So same, you won't have LH, you won't have ovulation. So in the end, ovulation also cannot occur. So that's how you mention it. But usually, if they didn't ask, they just say birth control pill, how does it prevent pregnancy? You can seriously say that synthetic progesterone inhibit LH, no ovulation, no fertilization. Usually it's like this. But since they want you to explain FSH, yeah, so we say no FSH, no follicle, no oocyte, same, no ovulation. Okay. And here they got us state the difference between hormone K and L in terms of the gland that secretes it. So K and L, yeah, go and look at yourself. There's only two things that secretes hormone, the pituitary gland, the follicle. So go and see who is who. So I give a task to you to try yourself. And then discuss the factors and symptoms that occur during phase M. Now, this is our final question. We do one essay question. So here, the phases in the menstrual cycle. So here is menstruation phase. Pre-ovulation means also known as repair. After ovulation, the last 2 weeks is basically called PMS, pre-menstruation phase. So discuss the factors. Okay, so you can say this is basically pre-menstruation phase. So the factors here that cause girl to PMS, right, is because of imbalance of estrogen and progesterone. During here, progesterone estrogen level will decrease because the corpus luteum start to degenerate already. That's what happened towards the end of menstrual cycle. So it's caused by imbalance of estrogen and progesterone. So symptoms, so it causes mood swings, fatigue, change in appetite, for example. And because lack of estrogen, the absorption of calcium becomes weak. So probably you have like joint pain or back pain. Back pain better lah. Yeah, so suddenly feel like old people like that. 3 marks, See? Okay, the next question. Okay, it shows a calendar over here, shows a teenage girl menstrual cycle and activity records on the calendar. So they say here is where the Ha8 Bermuda means menstruation start here. So here's like the day 1 of menstrual cycle. Here's the last day of the previous cycle. So they say the teenage girl has a regular period. She wants to delay her period to participate in a swimming competition. She has met with a obstetrician and gynecologist to get hormone injection so her period can be delayed. So this injection helps to delay her period. So this injection, they say which date it should be taken and the effect of the hormone. So you need to know what hormone and when to inject it. So by the way, I still already say the hormone injection is mainly progesterone because progesterone continues to thicken the wall. It prevents the wall from breaking down. It also prevents ovulation from occurring. So basically, when you want to inject it, you want to inject right before ovulation because after ovulation, if there's no fertilization, the wall will start to break down already. So before ovulation, you need to inject it. And also it takes time for the hormone to function. So you cannot like after ovulation only inject. So ovulation is around day 14. So 22 minus 14 is 8. So you want to inject it before. So probably like around 7. Okay, because after ovulation, if there's no fertilization, within a few days, the wall will start to break down already. So you need time for the hormone to react. So the answer is you must give it before ovulation, or you can say on the 7th of August. So the hormone here is progesterone. So progesterone, like we mentioned so many times in this video today, to stimulate thickening of endometrium. So the endometrium thicken means it does not shed. If it does not shed, there's no menstruation. The wall doesn't break down, there's no bleeding. But if you write like that, it's only 5 months. So we also got to explain a bit. Progesterone inhibits F and L. So it prevents the next cycle from starting. So if the next cycle doesn't start, means there's no menstruation. So it inhibits LH, FSH, prevents ovulation. So this is the 2 additional points we're going to mention. But the main one is this. The wall. You want to make sure it doesn't break down because if it breaks down, that's when menstruation, that's where the bleeding occurs. So I will skip to this one of a Selangor question, but I'm not going to go through the whole Selangor question. Okay, this is our last and final one. The video is getting quite lengthy already. Comparison question between twins. So based on here, twin X is formed by 2 sperm, 2 ovum. This is called fraternal. Better to write fraternal instead of non-identical twins. So this is fraternal twins. 1 sperm, 1 ovum, then divide into 2. This is 2 exactly same twins. Identical twins. Compare and contrast means similarity and difference. 10 marks, so it's a full comparison question. Now, similarities, actually, there's a lot you can say. Regardless whether you are what twin, definitely there's fertilization between sperm and ovum. Definitely, there's meiosis and mitosis involved. Meiosis to form the sperm, the ovum, mitosis for the zygote to grow. And no matter what twin you are, you form a zygote, the zygote becomes embryo. So you can see similarities is very general actually. So then first thing you really can see in the diagram, what do we see? For fraternal, we see 2 sperm fertilizes 2 ovum. Identical, 1 sperm, 1 ovum. Therefore, 2 zygote form, 1 zygote form. And then, basically, for identical twins, the 1 zygote will split into 2 different embryo, whereby this one, there's no splitting involved. Okay, so the zygote does not split at all. And then the placenta, identical twins, you only will share 1 placenta. Remember, one zygote initially means you only use 1 placenta. Okay, so identical is same, non-identical, each will have their own because you have 2 separate zygote forms, so each will have their own placenta. So this one, the twins will share the same placenta. Whereby this one, each twin has its own placenta, we will say. Identical twins will definitely have the same genetic content. So they look exactly the same because they come from the same sperm, same ovum. So they share the same genetic constitution. This one, they do not share the same genetic constitution. And then gender. So if you have the same genes, you are same sex, same gender. One boy, both boy. That's why identical twins is definitely same gender one. However, this one, they are two different zygote. So their gender doesn't affect one another. They can be same, they can be different. So it can be same or different gender. So here already got more than 10 marks. Hopefully now this helps you a bit on difference between the two tweets. So that's all I will go through. So I'm not sure which part of the state trial is this already. So if there's still another one, I will see you in my next video lah. So goodbye guys.